We are seeing recently that attackers are gaining access into corporate networks via two avenues. One is through email, targeting internal users, and the second is through web application attacks. What I'm going to show with Core Impact today is how a web application attack can be used to find SQL injection and other vulnerabilities on a web application, but how it can turn that into a multi-vector attack, turning a web application weakness into an avenue into the network to allow an attacker or a tester to move around internally. First, we need to learn about the web application we want to test today. This is done quite simply by instructing Impact on how to crawl and enumerate that web application. We tell it details of where the web application is. We could tell it just to follow our browser and do an interactive discovery, and we could also automatically find and test web applications on a given network that we've already scanned. I'm going to go ahead and have this target an internal web application using the default properties. When this begins, it'll break out the process into stages. It'll start off by crawling the web application, and for each page found, it's going to enter that information into my entity view for me to interact with. Now that the module is finished and we've discovered all of the web applications, we can look for exploitable vulnerabilities. Again, this is done through a wizard. I'm simply going to tell the wizard which of the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities I want the wizard to check for. As you can see, we cover all of the OWASP top 10, and I can choose exactly which ones I do and do not want Impact to look for. I can also have it look for known vulnerabilities in commercial off-the-shelf applications or publicly available applications. For each type of vulnerability I've asked it to look for, I can configure settings to dictate the type of checks that it's going to do on my behalf. We're not going to overwhelm this target web application. Each type of vulnerability analyzer will run independently of the others. As pages are found to contain these vulnerabilities, they'll be marked inside of the GUI. We can see the page that's already been compromised, and an exploitable SQL injection vulnerability has been found. I can right-click on the vulnerability, and we can see some actions that I can perform. I can also come into my module view and look for specific actions I want to perform. For example, I could just learn information about the back-end database behind this vulnerability. I can simply drag and drop in order to have this module take advantage of that vulnerability and learn information. In this case, it's been able to tell me this is a Microsoft SQL Server running as a database and information about the back-end. If I want to dig in deeper, I can run other modules. Again, all I need to do is drag and drop those modules. We're going to see those modules run and the output come out. Now, for example, we're learning about the back-end schema. What actually makes up the tables in this database? Once I have that information, I can dig even deeper. You recall when I right-clicked, I had a SQL shell option. I can come in and choose to run any SQL query I like against this target database. We can see I was able to identify a database table which contains information about the employees for this organization. In my SQL query, I'm pulling out specific information from that database. When I hit enter, Impact will take care of taking my SQL query, injecting it inside the vulnerable parameter on the page that allows for SQL injection, submitting it to the web application to be processed by the database, and crawling through the HTML response to find the data I look for. That all takes place for me, and we can see that information scrolling back on the screen. The information I asked for was name, employee ID, title, and their email address. You can imagine using this information, I could craft a very legitimate looking social engineering attack targeting these users. Instead, I want to dig deeper into what we can do with this database. We've shown how we can go through and look for specific pieces of information. I want to look for more generic information that should be protected. I have a module, Check for Sensitive Information, that has built-in checks for social security numbers and credit card numbers. And I can add a regular expression of my own to search for any data that I like, perhaps customer ID or employee ID. This module will search the database and bring back this information. I don't want to store that information on my machine, so I'm going to tell it to obfuscate this information as it displays it back to me. I simply click on OK, and we're going to see this module start to run. It's going to analyze all of the tables looking for this information for us. We can see the module is finished, and it's found proof of sensitive information being displayed in the clear on this target machine. I've been scrolling up and down to find pages which I've found vulnerabilities on. I can also use some predefined search folders that will try and find that information for me. So SQL injection will show me all the pages we found SQL injection vulnerabilities on. Cross-site request forgery, OS command injection, each of these folders will find those pages with those vulnerabilities. If I come in and look at my cross-site scripting page, we can see here an agent I can use to interact with. I can leverage this cross-site scripting vulnerability to demonstrate exactly how an attacker could use this to attack the visitors to this page and potentially gain access to the browser content and even the operating system of those machines. But what I want to show is how we can use the SQL injection vulnerability to actually take over the entire network. To do this, I'm going to switch to an agents folder. I'm going to use this module, install OS agent using SQL agent. Again, I just drag and drop. I drop this on the SQL injection I want to take advantage of and click on OK. If we switch to my network view, what we'll end up with is a representation of the machine that is running that database and my control over that database. My control will not be of the front-end web application server, but of the back-end server that's running the database. We can see that server's arrived, and now I can interact with that machine. I can do that by right-clicking on the control I have and choosing an option which is Set as Source. With this agent as source now, I can actually perform a network attack against all of the machines available to this agent. So let's go ahead and do that. I simply run network information gathering. I can see the network that this machine is on is an IPv4 network, so we're going to target it across IPv4. And I can choose either a whole subnet, I can use CIDR notation, or I could do ranges. Let's go ahead and put in a range. I'm simply going to tell Impact I want to look for all the machines in this range on that remote network. I can choose some specifications about how this will be performed. Once I click Finish, Impact will have that source agent go out and discover machines on that target network. We can see them being added in. From a network point of view, the source of all of this traffic is not my Impact console running here on my machine, but that database machine, which is targeting the network around it. Once it finishes discovering all of those machines and fingerprinting them, I can perform attack and penetration against those machines. I can pivot from the database server and try and gain OS control of these machines in the back-end network. I get to choose some defaults for how I'd like this attacks to be run, if I'm prepared to expose these machines to risk, what type of actions I want to take place as soon as a machine has been compromised, what type of evasion should take place. I'm going to take the defaults and go ahead and click Finish. This will go ahead and run and target those internal application servers and try and exploit vulnerabilities on those machines. If vulnerabilities are exploited on those machines, I can then either leverage control and pivot further into the network or try and extract data from those machines. We have an automated process for extracting data by running the local information gathering wizard. This wizard will run on one, some, or all of the machines that I have control of and pull out various types of information, from information about the machine itself to credentials and other information that I could reuse to target and compromise other machines. I can also clean up when I'm done. I can remove my presence from all of these machines and move straight to the report generation phase. With my reports, I can produce all number of reports. If this is a network I test regularly, I can produce a delta report or a trend report. I can produce a summary report for those senior people in the organization who just need an idea of what risk this network represents to us. Or I could go into more detail, and I can produce a vulnerability report with specific information about how to remediate the issues that I've found. For the web side, we can produce web reports as well. So I can produce again risk reports on how this web application exposed the network to risk, as well as a vulnerability report highlighting the issues that were found that allowed me to gain access to this network and what remediation steps should need to be taken. I can also produce an attack graph. I can show visually exactly how I was able to move around this network. I can use this to demonstrate to less technical folks how the paths within this environment allowed me to leverage vulnerabilities and step deeper and deeper into this network.